What do we say to our friends who are ashamed of their partners? Hi, my name is Dr. Natalie Jones, and I want to reply to Blythe Wood's comment. What do you say to a friend who is going through this situation but hasn't left yet? So I have I think it depends on where people are in their journey. So myself, for example, I've done a fair amount of healing work and continue to do so, going to therapy and blah, 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 right? So for me, a person such as myself, and it's not saying that I'm better or worse or, anything like that, but just for me in my personal life, um, I don't have friends like that. So if I have friends that are like struggling, they're in an abusive situation, or people that I know, I should say, that are struggling in an abusive situation, they're kind of on the fence back and forth about whether or not they want to leave, or, whether or not they're ashamed of their partner doesn't treat them well. I do not have friends like that in my close circle of relationships, and I don't encourage other people to do so either. And the reason why, especially if you're on a healing journey, and that's, maybe that was something from your past, and you've gotten away from that. The reason why is because people that usually are struggling with this challenge, especially if they haven't gone to therapy, and they're not putting any active steps in place to like make the transition. Like, I've gotten my new apartment, I'm decreasing contact or whatever. If they're not actively taking the steps to leave the relationship, they are not going to leave the relationship until they get good and ready. And that may be next month, that may be next year, that may be 20 years from now. And as a friend, you're gonna be kind of yo-yoing up and down on this emotional roller coaster with them, listening to them, trying to affirm and reassure and, help them solve problems and this and that and the other. And you guys are, more importantly, you're out of alignment. And so for me, I don't encourage having friendships like that when you're no longer aligned. But that's just me. Now you can have an acquaintance. And again, I'm a believer that unless people are cognitively impaired and there's something wrong with them where they can't remember or retain information, I'm of the belief that you really only need to say something once to sort of gauge a person, like, hey, I'm noticing these things, and it's really troubling me. It's really heavy on my heart that you're kind of going through this in your relationship, and I'm really concerned about you. And if they say, "Oh, girl, don't worry about it," and this and that, or they can proceed to say, "I hate him," and she, and this and that, and they treat me so bad, but they don't do anything to change their circumstances. They're not actively doing the work. Again, I'm of the belief that you don't really need to bring that up anymore. They are right where they want to be, or right where they need to be, or right where they have to be, whether it's safety and security, or whether it's just a toxic relationship that they don't necessarily see themselves getting out of. Either way, it may be above and beyond your control. And you don't want to be more invested in somebody else's relationship, somebody else's outcome, somebody else's livelihood than they are, because you're going to get burned every single time. And you'll end up, you'll end up putting so much work and helping a friend. And, next thing you know, her and her person are riding off into the sunset, and she's ditched you after she's depleted you of all of your resources and your labor. And those can be emotional resources and labor. That can be financial. That can be physical. It could be any number of things. But people like that will deplete you and suck you dry and continue on with their relationship. So you can express your concerns once, but after that, I would say let it go, and let it fly. And I would even dial back the friendship, if that continues to be an ongoing issue, because that could be above and beyond your scope as a friend. And sometimes people have go through their own chaos, but you can't, you don't want to necessarily ride that roller coaster with them. If you do, then, hats off to you. Then my suggestions might not work for you, but People who watch my channel, they're kind of, done with that, and they're moving on to better, because they deserve better friendships. They deserve better relationships. They deserve to be surrounded by people that are equally aligned. And some of you may listen to this and may think my suggestion is too harsh. That's fine. I understand there's other content creators out there that may be more aligned. But again, I definitely do not have close personal, I don't recommend having close personal friendships with people who are in abusive relationships. You can get hurt, but more importantly, that person's not going to leave until they get good and ready. And so the sooner you realize that, the better you may be. Hope this helps.